Absolutely. All right, let's start. I'm Cecilia Gibson. I'm here with.
Warren Danenza.
Okay, thank you. And, and your position at the school.
Oh, I'm the principal of the school.
You're the
Principal of
the
Danenza.
school. Principal Danenza. Yeah, that works. I'm just gonna be asking some questions about like communities, how they're built, how they're destroyed. Like, I don't know, just like it's for this book we read, and we're asking essential questions based off of the reading, and it's just like, in general, your perspective on these questions.
Okay. What's the book?
Beowulf.
All right.
Yeah. We
Heavy.
did not finish reading it, which is fine. We read the main point. Whatever. All right. First question.
What's the enemy of Beowulf? Grendel? Grendel? Is that wrong?
I want to say yes. Grendel. He's like a beast.
Yeah.
He's like.
It's in a cave or something? I'm trying to remember.
Cave? I think so. We didn't really do like in depth. Actually, I have the notes right here. This is not relevant to the story, but that doesn't matter.
That's okay. I'll figure it out later.
He lived in a cave. Yeah. He had dwelt for a time in misery among the banished. Something, in a cave.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. I still got it.
Yeah, still got it. Alright, first question is, how are successful communities built and how are they destroyed?
So that's a good question. So I think I would answer it with probably the same answer. I would answer with the same answer. So I think that the most important thing when building a successful community is the establishment of trust.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that all great communities, they have a variety of positive attributes, right? I think, structure and discipline and transparency and honesty are all important, but I think you need the trust in the people that are within your community to make the right decisions for the betterment of the entire community, not just themselves. So, I know for me personally, like, one of the things that I try to do in like our school community is really trust the people around me, really recognize that while I am the principal and I'm like the leader or the boss, that I'm not the expert. I don't know everything, and I have hundreds of experts here, right? So I think me being vulnerable and just putting my trust in the people around me that are gonna help me make the best decisions, and make the right call in certain situations, I think really helps a community be as strong as it can be. Now I think the opposite is true, like when we talk about like bad communities or destroying, I think the lack of trust is huge, right? Because if I don't trust you to make the right decision for us, then I am only looking out for myself. And if you're in an environment where everyone's only looking out for themselves, then it becomes like very competitive and cutthroat, and no one's looking at the greater good. They're just looking for their own individual needs. So I think the lack of trust is what destroys good communities, and I think establishing trust from the onset and proving that you are trustworthy through your actions really helps communities blossom.
Yeah, I definitely see what you mean. I've gotten a different answer to that question until I've asked it.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And all similar, but like different in their own ways. I like that you circled back, just like recapped what you said.
Mm-hmm.
But I can definitely see what you mean about trust being important to build a society, and then like a lack of trust can definitely destroy it, because if you can't trust those that you surround yourself with, what are you even doing?
Right.
The second question is, what can you tell about a group's values based on their collective or individual fears?
That's an interesting question. So I think you could tell. I think you could tell a lot from a group's. Tell a lot about a group's values based on what they fear. One of the things I always try to bring it back to like my own experience. I entered like a already established community like this summer, right? So I was hired in July or whatever it was. So I'm already in this community, right? And in summer, no one's here. So there's like, I don't know anyone, don't know any of the kids, don't know any of the teachers. right? So I had to kind of come in like the first couple weeks and months and kind of sit back and observe, like, what are people afraid of? What are their perspectives? What do they think? What does this community value, right? And kind of sit back and kind of understand, my given situation. So one of the things that was immediately clear to me, like when I got here specifically, is that there seemed to be like a level of like, I don't know, like a heavy air. Like I felt like people were like subdued, were smothered. I don't know what like just kind of tense, right? Kids and adults. So I really wanted to understand like why were people, what was that fear? Like, what was that about? And what it became clear is that people just had been fearful of, I guess, making the wrong decision or being themselves or being creative or whatever the case is. So, I wanted to make sure that I established very early that, this is a safe space. You can be yourself. You can be creative. There are no bad ideas. Like, everyone's important. Everyone's voices should be heard. And I think from that experience over the last 3 months, I've really kind of come to understand like what we value as a school based on looking at first those fears that people had and displayed to me. So I think if I were to answer this question, like say in July, I wouldn't be able to answer it at all because I don't know anyone, I don't know anything. But I think knowing now, I think this place has a very rich history, I think, and there's a lot of positivity that was here. But for whatever reason, whether it's societal stuff, past administration, there was just like a heaviness that I wanted to immediately just kind of lighten the air and let people kind of be free to be themselves. And I think from that, it's become very evident that that's what everyone wants. They just want to create a safe space, not only for them as professionals, but also for our students to be themselves, be creative, express themselves however they see fit. Because ultimately, I think that is the mark of a great community.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely see what you mean about just specifically like how the school felt when you first came in. I feel like we've had a different principal 3 out of 4 years I've been going to the high school here, and then same principal when I was in freshman year and junior high here.
Mm-hmm.
And every time we've gotten a new principal or administrator, the air kind of like tightens up a bit. And then last year with what's his name, Mr. Fisher, I feel like things were just very locked in for the last 2 years. And then when you came, like the air just became lighter. I've noticed this year is definitely like there's a difference in everybody's spirit, their personality, how everyone's acting. I feel like it's for the best.
Yeah,
you know?
I think it's tough because I think there's just people don't know, they're afraid of like the unknown, mm-hmm. right? So a lot of people are kind of reserved and held back when there's like a new person around. And even for me, like I remember going into those first like couple meetings I had with you guys and was just like very stern and very direct, and I was probably like shouting and came off probably like very angry. And I would imagine if you maybe you yourself or anybody, like, did you think I would be like, am I the same person you thought I would be based off that first meeting? You know what I mean? Like, because I had to come in like pretty strong, like this is, and these are my expectations. I remember like there's a couple kids in the front row that were like in my interview last year, and I remember like after one of the class meetings, I like looked over at them and I was like, you realize I'm not really like this, right? Like I'm not really mean and like to yell all the time. And they're like, yeah, we know you're just like trying to do the principal thing. So.
I think Ushwa told me as soon as like we had that first senior homeroom with you at the very beginning of the year, she was like, yeah, he's very different from how he was in the interview. And I was like, for the best? She was like, for the best.
Yeah.
So like it's definitely, you're not as strict, and like that's a good thing because like you have your moments where it's like you need to crack down,
mm-hmm.
but it's also like ultimately you've dealt with situations worse in here.
Yeah.
I know Dorby is not a great school. My parents grew up near there. I grew up near there. Not a great situation. So
yeah.
You definitely know when you need to crack down and when you can light up the air.
Yeah, and play off each other. Like Dr. Lamons and Miss Ambrose. Like, I know when, if they're being like the good cop, if you will, I have to be the bad cop. Like we just, you gotta know when to play off each other. Miss Greer is usually like my not my bad cop, but she likes to tell me like I can't say yes to everything. So like right there, like Nathan Crea just walked in and he was like, "Where can I put these posters?" I was like, "Anywhere you want." She's like, "No, you can't." She's like, "No, you can't do that." So I struggle sometimes, but you back to my my first answer is like you surround yourself with people that also know. Like I would be nowhere without Miss Greer. Like her coming on this summer and like really giving me like background and this is what this is, refine that. Like I would be lost.
Mm-hmm. Miss Greer's great. Love her. Third question. Oh, flip side. What can you tell about a group's values based on their communities? How's that flip side? That's not. Scratch that. Why do you care about your community?
I think like the simple answer would be because I know my community cares about me. That's why I care about them. I think for me, it's really crazy to think that like I live in this community, right? So like this means so much more to me than I think it would otherwise if I wasn't living here or from one of our sending districts, right? So having students that live on my street, having parents that are friends and neighbors whose kids come here, having the responsibility of eventually like educating my own students, my own kids, excuse me, puts a lot of pressure on me to like get it right. But I ultimately care about this community because it's my community, right? Like if I'm successful in my role, then the community is successful, right? Like so, and it's not just me, right? It's all the kids that come through here, it's the adults that work here, it's everyone's experience becomes magnified and amplified. And like, I'm not a math person at all, but like I think the right way to think about it is like, I want to say like exponents, right? Like if I do a good job and you become a great student or you remain a great student and remain a great person, then you make impact in your own community in your own way because I was able to do that. And if I'm doing that for 800, 900 kids and they're able to go back to Merchantville and Barrington and spread that positivity and that kind of sense of community, it just makes everything around us even stronger. So looking at it that way, like looking at the power of like, throwing the rock in the lake and the ripple effect that goes out, I think for me is a lot of pressure, but it's also like, I look at pressure as like a privilege. Like it's a privilege for me to have the opportunity to make that amount of impact on where I live and where I socialize, where I hang out, where my kids live, everything. I think it's really important.
Yeah.
Even like last night, like, we don't go out to dinner often, but like my wife was like, "Want to go out to dinner tonight? I don't feel like cooking." And I was like, "Sure." I was like, "I heard about this place in Merchantville. Like, let's go to Merchantville." And I walk in and there's like two students that, are here. And, I think for them, it's like, "Oh my God, my principal's here. That's pretty cool." Cause it's easy for me to hit things in Heights cause I live here, but making it a point to like go to all the districts, all the different boroughs, so that they feel, it's not as disjointed as 4 different places coming into one, is really important too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I have to say about that. Just,
Okay.
I get what you're saying. What do you think are some good ways for other people, like students or the staff members, to show support and caring for our community?
I think that looks different for everybody, right? I think just being engaged, right? So you don't have to be engaged in whatever's going on, and be willing to step up in your own way. Like some people are like action oriented, right? So they just want to get involved, go to a community cleanup or whatever it is. Some people are more of like behind the scenes. They want to organize. They want to, look at the logistics and things. But like whatever your skill set is, whatever your strength is, I think engaging within the community with that strength or that skill set is huge, right? Because the cliche that like it takes a village to raise a kid. Well, like you know, that village needs to be like multifunctional. They need to be strong in a variety of different things. If everyone's like the best carpenter, that kid's just going to be like a great carpenter, right? They're not going to be like a great reader or a great math person. So like having a diverse representation within the community of skill sets, interests, and needs, and people being willing to like bring that stuff to the table, I think is huge. I think it really impacts. It really impacts like the overall success of the community, because you have this diverse representation of abilities, interests, life experiences, backgrounds, everything that can possibly fall under diversity.
Yeah. Just like do what you think is important and what you think you can give to the community, get it, and then that's what matters.
And also like have a collective mindset, right? So like it's not about what you get out of it, right? It's not about, you know, the reward. You know, you just do because you know it's what's best for everybody. And I think having that collective mindset and that community mindset is really helpful. If you go into it thinking like, oh, I'm just gonna do service hours cleaning up trash somewhere because, you know, I feel bad about myself, like and it's gonna make me feel better. I don't think it might make you feel better for a temper. Why can't I think of the right word?
Temporarily?
Yeah, temporarily. I'm sorry, I said it like 3 times. It might like make you feel better temporarily, but like over the long term, like it's not going to change anything about who you are. But if you consistently put the needs of others before your own, right, you generally will have good things come back to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then the final 2 questions are flip side of each other. What are some positive adjectives you use to describe our community?
Positive attitude. I will say it's diverse. I think I look around and we don't have really a lot of, I would say, cultural or ethnical. That's not the right word. Ethnic diversity, right? Like, you know, but I do think that having 4 boroughs come into one provides a lot of opportunity for kids to learn from each other that are coming from different experiences, different life experiences. I look at our staff and think that there's a diverse representation of like interests and talents and expertise. What I've come to learn is that it's very supportive. I think in the short amount of time when bad things happen, to me, this community does a really good job of coming together to support people in need, whether it's through Garnet Gold or veterans or someone passes away or whatever the case is. I think that people step up to really support one another. I would like to think that, you know, 3 months in that the culture is pretty positive. You know, I know that it's high school and there's always, you know, going to be some level of negativity and kids, you know, kind of picking at each other and sometimes cliques and things like that. But as I kind of walk the building and like, you know, I'm in lunches and things like that, I see kids generally acting pretty positive towards one another. So I would say those 3 are pretty good positive attributes for our community.
Yeah. And then flip side, what are some negative adjectives you use to describe our community?
I don't know that I use some negative. I'm trying to think of like, I don't think this is negative, but I think one thing that, you know, we're still developing. I think because like you said, like there was a community already here before I got here. And obviously with my influence, the community will shift a little bit and like some of its goals and perspectives and things like that. So I wouldn't say it's negative, but I think that, you know, we're just still kind of developing and we're kind of in the infancy of our new community or this version of this community.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Those
Anything
are all
else?
questions.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Sorry if I talk too much.
No, you're fine.